Hi, I'm Roisin Levine. I'm head of UKI European Partnerships for Wise Platform, and welcome to our mini-series, How We're Fixing. We're going to be interviewing people from around fintech and finance space about the problems their organisation is solving. Delighted to have Jason here today from TSB. Jason, please could you introduce yourself and what your role entails?
Yeah, Roisin, look, great to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. So I head up our partnerships and open banking business. So on the partnership side, it's how we can work with some of the greatest minds in the UK, some of the great fintechs, and really start to accelerate our digital offering and bring them to our customers. And then on the open banking piece, first of all, compliance, how do we run and maintain an open banking service? But then more broadly, how can we then sort of start to really take that investment and offer new and exciting propositions to both customers and small businesses?
Awesome, cool stuff. And thank you very much for kind of giving us an overview of your remit. You mentioned that you're kind of tasked with looking after partnerships and I guess kind of finding ones for TSB. One thing that we're interested in talking about today is the digital drive that TSB has and what you're kind of tasked with accelerating, how you balance that with the high street presence that TSB has today that's kind of it's famous for.
Yeah, so look, it's a great question. And for me, branches and high streets, right, they're more and more about having conversations with your customers, building relationships and really starting to drive financial well-being and drive sort of money confidence. So I wouldn't necessarily say that sort of digital delivery, digital transformation and high street presence don't go hand in hand, because I think they absolutely do. And if I look back over the last sort of 3 years, as much as we don't want to talk about it, sort of that digital delivery, that digital transformation. So we delivered TSB Smart Agent in sort of 5 to 7 days in the height of the pandemic. We were the first bank to deliver the sort of the holiday repayment forms and the bounce back loan scheme forms through our partnership with Adobe. But I talk about sort of bringing that digital and high street back together. Yep. And I think more recently some of the things that I think it's about empowering customers. So we created a mobile experience in our mobile app where customers can now themselves in the app open new products and services. And that means actually that customers can sit in a branch, they can sit on their own device, and we can sort of start to be more personal as we sort of guide them through those experiences. Yep. And then something I'm personally a bit proud of, which we've done in open banking over the last couple of years, is then actually start to think about how do you do more broader financial well-being conversations. So more and more customers have got accounts with banks outside of TSB, and therefore actually how can we sit down and help them have money confidence unless we've got a complete view of their finances. Yep. So we did a pilot in a couple of branches up in Scotland, and we really started to enable our branch partners to have the data, to have conversations about customers' finances, see where we could help, and that was really successful. Branch partners loved it because it removed the stress of having to go through a customer's pay slip or try and understand the customer's position before they came in for the conversation. And customers loved it because it just really showed we care. And I think it's, that's for me where branch and digital, is really important. It's about those moments, and digital should be there to facilitate the conversation, not replace the conversation. Yeah. And that's where, to go back to your point, digital delivery, digital transformation and branch they can just work so perfectly together.
Amazing. And you mentioned some of the partnerships that now you can access as a customer. Any ones that are like high impact, or any ones you want to call out that you think particularly been successful?
And I think this is the beauty of being a mid-tier bank, with a good customer base and a good brand reputation, is that you've got the best of both worlds. So in the pandemic, we realized very quickly that there were just two types of customers. So there were customers who were working from home, they didn't have the expenses they used to have, and therefore they had higher savings balances. Yep. And actually we therefore thought as a duty to them, what are some of the things that we can bring to market that will very quickly allow them to sort of make use, if they want to, of those higher savings balances. So we rolled out our partnership with Wealthify, and very quickly, within its first year, and even today now, we've got sort of £16 million invested by customers in Wealthify, and that continues to grow significantly month on month. But then also on the inverse, there were customers who needed our help, and we launched off the back of that a bill switching partnership with AppTap. And to date, one customer has saved, I think the largest they've saved was £1,000 on their bills.
Wow.
So if you talk about giving customers money confidence and helping their financial well-being, and even more so, you know, with a slightly gloomier picture around cost of living and inflation, you know, that's just huge, right? So we that was sort of the acorn that grew into a tree, and the tree for us now is being the first high street bank in the UK to launch an in-app marketplace experience. We delivered it in partnership with Salesforce, and you know, again, there's what the customer sees, and then there's what happened internally. You know, we delivered that. It was 2 sprints to deliver that to customers. So really short period of time, really rich experience, and I think it just shows now that, you know, if you've got the right mindset, the right people, and the right tech, you can really deliver at pace.
Awesome. And I do see TSB often announcing lots of partnerships, mainly more than a lot of banks. I know that there was an initiative a couple of years ago, Fintech Delivery Panel, which was the Fintech Pledge, and I saw TSB kind of signing that. So I think you're obviously aware of some of the challenges of the fintechs, maybe working with banks. Is there any obvious challenges you come across?
So look, I've been with TSB now for 3 years, and our partnership journey was 2. And I really use the word journey, right? And there's some stuff that I'm really happy to be honest about. So when I first joined, you know, we're dealing with companies that can be a year and a half, a year, 2 years old, you know. And we were turning up to them, and there was a contract like this, and we were asking to see their gifts and hospitality policy, and you know. And if you're a small business that's, you know, just starting out and you've got a good chance to finally land a bank as a client, that stuff makes you nervous. So we've made a real conscious effort now to, and I think this is really our differentiator and our sort of unique selling point, we made a real focus to transform ourselves internally before we start to think about what we want to do externally. So now we've got a specific procurement process for our partners. We've got now just a 7-page contract versus the, you know, whatever we were delivering before. So, you know, all of that stuff hits exactly home to why we signed up to the Fintech Pledge, because, you know, for us, it's not just the badge on our website. You know, we are generally passionate about being one of the best and easiest banks in the UK to work with.
I think that's amazing. I'm sure that's music to many fintechs' ears. Do you find that you learn a lot as well from the fintechs? I'm guessing that there's a bit of a kind of mutual learning that happens during that process. So
I think, so we absolutely do. And that's largely, you know, a big incentive for us as part of our big partnership endeavour. I touched about it at the top, right, which is the smartest idea is no longer in the room. So, you know, we can't sit there as TSBers and go, we're right all the time. Because I guarantee you we're not. Happy to admit that. There is, though, an inverse, right, which I always try and navigate, which is, and I sort of briefed it, touched you there, is that if you're a startup, you know, and you've got 5 to 10 people, you know, you want a story to go back to your investors with, right? And therefore, actually, sometimes these fintechs or partners can move away from their mission, can move away from their strategy, and actually focus on developing a product and tool for me. And actually, I don't want them to develop a product and tool for me. I want them to develop a product and tool for customers. So I'm really clear that, you know, although I learn stuff, I don't want to influence at the same time.
That's a really interesting challenge. I hadn't really thought of that, but it makes sense, right? As a startup, you really want to work with a big bank, and so there's almost a kind of potential to get too involved in that one deal and think, right, great, I'm just going to yes along to everything, and actually the product focus could end up slightly at the background, where startups, one of the great things is they often come out with a great product and they're really, really laser focused on that. That makes sense. I mean, interestingly, with Wise, I think we sort of see something similar. We see that, you know, there doesn't have to be this competitive dynamic. You can be complementary, and one of the reasons why we believe we're complementary to banks is that we've spent 10 years just focusing on international payments. That's kind of our core problem we've solved. And so we can look and help maybe a domestic bank that does very, very well servicing customers in one sphere, but actually potentially we can kind of take that expertise and they can leverage us. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about with fintechs, is they've kind of homed in on one particular problem. you're not going to have all the answers in the room, as anyone would, and you're not going to always have the resources, investment internally to kind of work on that one problem. You can go to the fintech and then kind of find those answers out. So I think that's really cool. So I saw recently you launched TSB Innovation Labs. Please talk me through that. What's the end goal there?
Yeah, so we launched TSB Labs in 2019, right? And I challenge you, and I challenge anyone who's watching this podcast, and they can feel free to add me on LinkedIn to prove me wrong, right? Which is to find a high street bank in the UK who would take 5 people who'd recently just graduated from university with an idea, run them through an incubation program where we help them develop their product, give them insight to people across the business for them to learn and ask questions, take them from there to a staff pilot, and we did 1,000 staff and then grew that. And then from there, in the space of a year, by the way, so these aren't large timescales, and then from the space of the year, roll them out to 5 million customers.
Yep.
And that's exactly what the TSB Labs program is about. So, I see other incubator, startup, innovation programs going along, and it's largely, humble opinion, it's largely sort of quantity rather than quality. And we're really clear about we go into it, what's the problem we're generally trying to solve for our customers, and then let's find some fintechs that are linked to that problem, work with them, help them learn, but then also help us learn and grow. And then ideally, at the end of it, we've really got a nice tight proposition that we can take to market for our customers. So we ran it in 2019 in London, and that's how we discovered AppTap, and I've talked about already how that's gone. This year, being a bank with Scottish roots, proud of its Scottish heritage, and recognising that there is life outside of London. We're running it in partnership with Fintech Scotland in Edinburgh, focused around 3 themes. So sustainability, small business, and then delivering money confidence through the cost of living crisis. By the time this has gone out, applications are already closed.
Wow.
But we're really excited to sort of run the programme, and hopefully we can come back and talk about some of the stuff we found at a later date.
So amazing opportunity, I'm sure, for any fintechs to basically get applications in, I guess, but it sounds like you'll be...
But the good news is there will be a TSB Labs 2023, so maybe you can get your application in early, and we'll...
Cool. Awesome. So you've obviously found this to be successful so far, and I'm guessing you're going to do more of it in the future. Any major wins you can talk about, other than maybe AppTap, that you can mention from this?
So I think it's the win for me more broadly is asking them when a fintech walks through the door on day one, what are your problems? What are you looking to learn? And then asking them on the last day, have you got everything you know? And the feedback has been really positive. And there was one particular fintech who I won't mention. I did a whole bunch of work with them, and the bank did a whole bunch of work with them on just... So the background is TSB are owned by Sabadell. Sabadell have got a VC investment arm called InnoCells. So as a family, we worked so hard together to support this fintech on fine-tuning your pitch deck, how to present yourself, preparing for questions. And they left us, and then they've gone on to raise good money. They've got good traction with investors. So
that's amazing.
I'd like to think that we played a little part in that journey.
No, definitely, and I think that's what we're talking about, is this kind of maturity of the conversation sometimes you need to have with a big bank can potentially help a fintech sort of raise that bar in their kind of early stage. So no, that's good, brilliant. I guess my kind of last question is, how do you see fintech partnerships, kind of banks, traditional banks, developing in the future, and any kind of particular plans that TSB maybe has?
So it's really interesting, right? So if you look in the UK with Revolut, there's big talk around the super app. If you look around the world, and we see it from, and this is the beauty of having a branch network. So this sort of also links back to your first question. We see customer demands and customer requests in real time. Mm-hmm. So our partnership with Fairwill is a great example. So we saw branch partners coming to me and saying, customers are coming in and saying, do you have a wills proposition? And we take that data, and then we're sort of able to respond to that request. The future, I think, is then how do you start to really build them deeper into your banking experience? So today we have a marketplace where we refer customers out. What's the evolution of that, and where are the boundaries? So customers today, look for financial products. more and more they look for non-financial products, but where does that stop? And I think that's the really interesting experience. My sort of second point would be, how do you then, and I talked a little bit about this yesterday, which is sort of, particularly for SMEs, is around embedded finance. So, how can TSB start to think about building itself into accounting platforms? How can TSB start to think about building itself into, other ecosystems that our customers operate in?
Got you.
So actually we can really start to sort of, support them, and, because money confidence, whilst it's got money in it, for you to be confident, you've got to be settled, you've got to be happy and around just more than that, right? So how do we start to support customers in other areas they wouldn't necessarily expect us to?
Got you. And that's an interesting point, the SMEs. I know that today they often use lots of different tools to look at their finances. It's kind of tricky to get that holistic one view. So if you kind of be that one-stop shop where they do everything, can manage everything for their bank account, makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
No worries, I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.